Donald Trump is now convicted felon. Donald Trump was found guilty in his criminal trial on all 34 felony counts. Moments ago, the jury read its verdict. We, the jury, find Donald J. Trump, the defendant, guilty. And then they proceeded to find him guilty on each and every one of the 34 counts. This is what Donald Trump heard. We, the jury, find defendant Donald J. Trump guilty on count 1, guilty on count 2, guilty on count 3, guilty on count 4, guilty on count 5, guilty on count 6, guilty on count 7, guilty on count 8, guilty on count 9, guilty on count 10, guilty on count 11, guilty on count 12, guilty on count 13, guilty on count 14, guilty on count 15, guilty on count 16, guilty on count 17, guilty on count 18, guilty on count 19, guilty on count 20, guilty on count 21, guilty on count 22, guilty on count 23, guilty on count 24, guilty on count 25, guilty on count 26, guilty on count 27, guilty on count 28, guilty on count 29, guilty on count 30, guilty on count 31, guilty on count 32, guilty on count 33, and guilty on count 34, signed the jury. A historic day, folks. And I read that because that's what Donald Trump heard. That's what went down in the courtroom. And for the past 7 weeks, as we've been covering the actual trial, and we've been covering this back since even before the criminal charges were filed, we've been focused on the facts. We've been focused on the evidence. We've been focused on the documents, the witness statements, the checks. We've been focused on the details. And I know sometimes the details may not be steeped in drama, but what is important was that we focused on the evidence. And I think when you go back and look at our coverage here at the MeidasTouch Network, almost 100%, I would say, we were able to call almost every single thing that happened using the data and just explaining what was happening and not buying into all of these media narratives. Donald Trump is now a convicted felon. They will move to sentencing on July 11th. It also happens to be 4 days before the Republican convention. But let's be clear and not normalize this moment. The leader of the Republican Party is a convicted felon. A jury of his peers, a fair and impartial jury who Donald Trump's lawyers had the opportunity to select, who heard the evidence, who deliberated for about 12 hours, who asked for additional information as part of their deliberations, who took their job very, very seriously, returned this guilty verdict. That's what went down today. And, it was so interesting. I was preparing for Political Beatdown, and it had seemed that the jury was just going to be going home for the day. And I think I had let the dogs out before I was about to go live with Dina Dahl on Political Beatdown, who's filling in for Michael Cohen. And then all of a sudden, I start getting hundreds of messages. There's a verdict. There's a verdict. There's a verdict.
You should know from my track record that the second that you leave your home, that's when the things happen. If you had a haircut booked, the verdict would have come at a different time. The verdict would have happened sometime while you were getting your haircut. If you're at the dentist, it would have happened while you were at the dentist. So, of course, it happened then while you were walking the dogs. That's just how.
Well, I would say this, though. It was such poetic justice that I could read the verdict during the episode of Political Beatdown, the show co-founded by Michael Cohen, who was a key witness in the Trump criminal trial. And think about all the media that was trying to push that narrative about Cohen on the stand, all the false things that they were pushing, which we were saying that's not what we're hearing inside of the actual courtroom for people who were there. But for whatever reason, whether it was for their personal gain or pushing a both sides narrative, all of those people, you know who you are, were just so absolutely wrong. And just a historic episode today of the MeidasTouch podcast. I'm so proud to be a part of this unapologetically pro-democracy community here. Brett and Jordy, how you doing?
Doing fantastic. I mean, what a historic day. I want to first thank the Meidas Mighty for being there with us through all of this coverage from the very beginning. I mean, we've been discussing this case for a long time now. We're about to bring on in a little bit Karen Friedman Agnifilo. Of course, you all know her from the podcast Legal AF and the new show Mistrial on the MeidasTouch Network, now available on audio podcasts, wherever you get your audio podcasts. And Karen has really been a leader of a lot of this coverage on our end. And I remember way back when Karen actually interviewed Alvin Bragg, Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg, and the reactions that we received at that time. And now reflecting on that to current day, you know, Alvin Bragg, I think, is a hero. Alvin Bragg followed the facts of the law. He prosecuted this case by the book, and he got a conviction on all 34 counts. So that is a massive, massive accomplishment for Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg. It's a massive accomplishment for Karen's former office as a whole. And Ben, incredible job with your coverage. I know you've been doing like marathon coverage on this network almost nearly every single hour of the day. So
he loves it.
It's such an honor, you know, to be able to present the data and the facts and to be able to deliver things straight, you know, in this sort of way to people. And, you know, I hope it's a bit of indication also for all of you watching, you know, that as we were doing this coverage, that we were just following the facts of the case. We didn't take any of these red herrings like a lot of the rest of the media did and tried to mislead in order to create this horse race sort of narrative. And I think, you know, I think that's important when you're dealing with cases like this. I know there are a lot of people certainly out there who say this isn't something to celebrate, that we should not be, you know, celebrating, taking to the streets and partying. And I respect that. Don't get me wrong. It's a somber thing to have a former president of the United States convicted and a current presidential candidate convicted of 34 felonies. But I got to say, if you want to celebrate, enjoy the celebrations, folks.
Oh,
we got to pop.
That was a classic pop right there. That was perfect.
I'm going to say it's okay to celebrate. It's okay to be happy about justice is all I'm going to say. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Jordy. Let's get Jordy's first words since the verdict. Jordy, how you feeling?
What's up, brothers? What's up, Meidas Mighty? What I'm just really excited about, two quick things. One, Brett, to your point exactly. Look, we're not narrative driven here at the MeidasTouch Network, and the Meidas Mighty knows that. And that's why the audience comes back to us night in and night out, day in and day out, because we just lead with the data. Like, y'all know us, and you know that we're just not going to steer you in any direction that we want to. We're going to read the data, and Ben and Karen and Michael and the network does such a nice job at breaking things down. And we're not just going to lead and, you know, give you hopium, right? We're going to go data first and then let you make your informed decision with that. And then, Brett, to your point right there about a lot of folks saying this isn't, you know, a time to celebrate. I think you could hold two thoughts in your mind at once. I think you could realize the severity of the moment of what just went down today, but then also be appreciative of seeing our legal systems work in a way that truly shows that nobody is above the law. And so with this conviction today, Donald Trump has shown that on full display, that it doesn't even matter if you're a former president. If you don't follow the law, and then a jury of your peers convicts you, you know, you're a convicted felon. And that's it. Convict 45. Ben, what say you?
Well, what say I is let's bring in Karen Friedman Agnifilo, who led our coverage here on the MeidasTouch Network on this Trump criminal trial. Karen Friedman Agnifilo, you were the number 2 at the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. You worked there for nearly 30 years, at times served as the acting Manhattan District Attorney. You've been able to provide us with some great insight about the way the cases work based on your real life perspective and what you dealt with at the office. And I would say thanks to you, in particular, our coverage of the Trump criminal trial has been the #1 across all digital most watched. And it's been an honor to co-host that with you, Karen. But we heard a little bit from you before when the news was breaking, but I'd love your more full detailed analysis right now. Would love to hear your reaction as a little bit more of this news is now kind of settling in. Karen.
Yeah, I'm gonna start with one quick war story. When I was a very young prosecutor in the early '90s, and I had my first trial, and it was a conviction. I remember coming back, and there was one person in particular who was saying, pop the champagne. This is great. Even likened a conviction to a sexual, something sexual, which I just remember thinking at the time, I had a pit in my stomach, and I thought, I don't think this job is for me because I don't feel happy at all. Am I absolutely, is it the right thing? And should there have been a conviction? Yes. But the gravity of a criminal conviction is absolutely one of the most intense, incredible feelings in not a celebratory way, but in a somber, it's almost how you would feel when something happens in the military or something happens. I can't describe it, but it's not celebratory. And I'm sure that the jurors here in this particular case felt that same weight of what they were asked to do. These were 12 average, regular people. By the way, they weren't people necessarily from Manhattan. They were currently residents of Manhattan, but they were people who come from all walks of life, different states, and even different countries. And I think that's important because, again, there are many narratives out there driven about how I can't get a fair trial in Manhattan. People in Manhattan are so biased. Well, this is such a cross section of the United States of America. This particular jury, I thought was really interesting. And I am sure they felt the weight of what they were tasked to do, which has nothing to do with the fact that it's Donald Trump, but it's to sit in judgment of another human being and to render a verdict, because it has nothing to do with Alvin Bragg or Joe Biden or Judge Merchan, the people that Donald Trump had been railing about for so long. This has to do with those 12 men and women who heard the evidence. The witnesses came in, and there was nothing special about this trial. This is exactly the same as every criminal trial in the United States of America. You have to go in, you go to court, and you sit and you are judged by a jury of your peers who have to find beyond a reasonable doubt. And that's the core of our system. And every single person who breaks the law has to face that same system. And so it's not about the DA, it's not about the judge, it's not about the prosecutor, it's about the jury. And the jury heard the witnesses, and there's no hearsay allowed, right? It's as witnesses have to come into court and swear to tell the truth, nothing but the truth. So help me God. They have to say what happened, and the defense gets to cross-examine them and gets to ask whatever questions they want. So it's fully vetted, and the jury heard it, and they sat in judgment of another human being. And that is a very, very difficult task. And I just give them so much credit for what they did. And frankly, they absolutely recognize the gravity of the situation. I think just given how people described what they looked like in the courtroom, and they were also resolute. The jury was polled, meaning the foreperson is the one who reads the verdict, but then the judge asks, would the parties, like the jurors, polled, meaning individually asked, is that your verdict? And the judge asked, juror number 1, you just heard or juror number 2, you just heard the foreperson read the unanimous, the guilty of all 34 charges. Is that your verdict? Yes. Juror number 2, is that your verdict? Yes. Juror number 3, is that your verdict? Yes. And so Donald Trump had to sit there and listen 12 times for each and every juror to be able to come out and emphatically say, that is my verdict. And the other thing I just want to say is, again, when you have Donald Trump saying, again, this is not legitimate, and everything is stacked against me, et cetera, and I can't get a fair trial. If that were the case, these jurors would have just had a 34 count conviction in an hour, right? When they got the case, but they were out 12 hours and they were out overnight. They asked for readback. They wanted to hear the testimony and go back over the evidence. They even asked for readback on the law. And so they considered the evidence. They considered the facts. They applied the facts to the law. And when was the last time you were able to get 12 people to agree on anything, right? Imagine asking 12 people, where should we have dinner tonight? What movie should we see? Right? The fact that these 12 people all agreed that unanimously that Donald Trump was guilty of 34 counts of falsification of business records is just astonishing, especially when you read the definition of reasonable doubt. As a prosecutor, every time a judge read that definition, I would have a pit in my stomach and think, how am I going to get a conviction? It's a really, really high burden. It's beyond any doubt with which you can affix a reason. That means these jurors had no doubt that they could affix a reason to. None. And that is absolutely a condemnation of Donald Trump and what he did in this case. This is not a hush money case. The theory of the prosecution's case, on no uncertain terms, was this was election interference. In fact, the judge said, if you find that was not election interference, he's not guilty. This was about influencing the 2016 election. That was the theory. The prosecution had to prove that beyond a reasonable doubt, and the jury found it. And so that is what he did. So for anyone to say this was not a serious case, this case should not have been brought, just think about it. In 2016, when nobody thought he was going to win, right? Nobody thought that back then. And what happened? He was able to hide information from the voters. He suppressed this information from the voters. And he won by 3 swing states and only by 80,000 votes. What if this made the deal, or made it so that's why he won? Think about how history changed because he became the 45th president. So for anyone to say this is not an important case, this is not a significant case, just really doesn't realize what this is about. But the jury just absolutely validated what we've all been saying. And I want to give the 3 of you credit because frankly, yes, I was at the Manhattan DA's office for almost 30 years. I spent my whole life there. I spent my whole career there. But you're in a bubble. And when I came out of the Manhattan DA's office, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And then I met you, Ben, in particular. And I learned about what you and your brothers were doing and MeidasTouch and what you were creating. And that this was a movement that was like no other movement. And what you guys created here, you were the first people to really say, you know what, enough with what is going on in the media, enough with the fake information that's being put out there, enough with the both sidesism. And you created the MeidasTouch network. And I met you, Ben, and I met Michael Popak. And, you guys had just created Legal AF. I think we had we'd be excited if we had 1,000 views, on one of our episodes. And I was talking to Popak one day, and we were just talking about what you guys are doing and what you created. And I said, I would love to be on Legal AF and be a part of this movement with you all, because it was so important and it was so unlike what anyone is doing. And I'm just so proud and honored to be a part of the MeidasTouch network. And I just really can't thank you all enough, because the fact that you're now like buddies, with Joe, the fact that not buddies with, but you can get an interview with Joe Biden. So to me, that's like buddies with, that he'll speak to you guys. Look at where you are and what you've created. And so I just think the MeidasTouch network in general deserves, such a huge credit, frankly, for hopefully saving our democracy ultimately, but certainly getting us to where we are right now and really being the leaders in this area, truly the leaders. There is nobody else. And I just want to say one other thing. We've been doing Legal AF, for 3-4 years now, and you guys have been doing this pod for a long time. We've all been doing it. And for people who don't know, we all have other jobs, especially back then we did. And this is like, kind of something that we did, or we do sometimes, on the side, because we care about democracy. We care about this, whatever. And you put in a lot of work, and it is a lot of work. And sometimes it's not fun. And sometimes it's really hard. And, Ben did it in the middle of his wedding, and I mean, we you do it all the time. And I just want to say, it's amazing to me to see how the rest of the world now is all doing the same thing, right? How many podcasts are there that do exactly what you've been doing and what we've been doing for 3 years now? How many, it's I think everyone, including the legacy media, is absolutely doing our model and is valuing authenticity over glossiness. And that's what I love about Meidas so much, is it's all about authenticity. It's not about, sometimes we have like a dog barking in the background or so, no, but it's true. It's not, the old model is one that depends on, expensive sponsorships and
Right.
to keep it going, because it has to be perfect and glossy. And what I love about you guys and what we've created, and I don't want to say we, because it's you. I mean, this is all the three of you that you have created this, and I'm just following along and loving every second of it, and feel so lucky to be a part of it. But just how it's all authenticity, right? It's all just about the real, the fact that like I can do it from a train, or I could do it from a taxi cab. Whatever. And people are very gracious about it, because I think they know we're just trying to bring them the truth, and it's all about the truth. And what really what was really validating for me today is, number one, I'm just so proud of my old office. I can't even tell you how incredibly proud I am. It's just a little state prosecutor's office, and every once in a while, you have like the people who are former feds, they kind of look down on us, just cute little state prosecutor over there. And I am just so proud of our office, that my old office, not my office anymore, but my office of 30 years. I'm just so proud that they always have done the hard cases, the cases that are not political. It's all about the truth. And, frankly, the truth matters, and the truth means something in this country. And Donald Trump kind of gaslights the world by making it seem like the truth doesn't matter. He comes out and he says things that are just the polar opposite of what is the actual truth. And really what meant a lot today and this verdict was it really validated that the truth actually matters. And so anyway, I wanted to just, because a lot of people are congratulating a lot of, the prosecution and everybody else, but I wanted to just take a minute, and I appreciate you letting me do this, just to really acknowledge you guys for creating the MeidasTouch network and bringing together a community of almost 3 million people who you've really, I think, changed the world in a big way. So thank you all.
Well, that is high praise coming from you, Karen. And it is you are an essential part of this. And that's why we were so thrilled to launch the new show, Mistrial, with you and Danya Perry and Kathleen Rice. Make sure you subscribe to this on the audio podcast, folks. It's on Apple right now. It's on Spotify. It should be basically anywhere you find podcasts. It's MeidasTouch, all one word, the newest addition to the MeidasTouch network. We had our premiere episode on YouTube last night, which is absolutely crushing it out of the gate. The reception has been incredibly positive out of the gate. Karen, while I have you and your expertise and your experience here, one of the things I found interesting during this trial was the constant reading of tea leaves by pundits and by people, online and whatnot. And one of the biggest kind of points of conversation in these past few days was the elusive jury notes. When the jury would ring and they say the jury has a note, And we would hear what these jury notes were. We heard that they wanted to learn more about the David Pecker testimony. They wanted to learn more about Michael Cohen's testimony in the Trump Tower meeting. At one point, they requested headphones so they could listen to something. And people were speculating about what a lot of these things meant at the time. Now, after the verdict, reflecting on these jury notes, what do you think was possibly going through the jury's mind when they were requesting those pieces of evidence?
I think that's a great question, and I've thought a lot about it. I think they were really, they took their job seriously, which is thinking that the prosecution has the burden and the only burden to, first of all, it's clear they absolutely rejected that ridiculous Bob Costello defense and the defense saying, you could have called Eric Trump, you could have called Don Jr. I'm sorry, those people would have testified for you, Mr. Todd Blanche, if they had something good to say. You don't think your client would have said, okay, sons, get up there and say something, or Alan Weisselberg or Keith Schiller? They chose to put on a defense, and they chose to, that's what they chose. They chose to put Bob Costello. That totally backfired and blew up in their face. And I think the defense here was really, and I hate to Monday morning quarterback this, but I really don't think I think there was a case here that the defense had a chance of winning, and they just totally did not try this case properly. Thankfully, because now he's convicted, and because there were weaknesses in the case, like there are any case, but they absolutely did not put on a good trial, in my opinion, if I were criticizing the defense. But what they did then was the jury, so they totally rejected the defense, what the defense said, and was like, okay, that makes no sense what they did. But I still, doesn't matter. I can reject the defense, but I still have to, the prosecution still has to meet their burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt, because they can reject the defense and then look at the prosecution's case and say, oh, but they still haven't proven their case beyond a reasonable doubt, and still have to vote not guilty. So I think that what they did was they looked at, they took what the prosecution's theory, Josh Steinglass's theory of the case, which was Michael Cohen is corroborated. He provided the roadmap, he provided context, he provided color, and we recognize that he in the past he had some credibility issues, and as a result of acknowledging that gave them a lot of credibility to the jury too. But said, look, everything he said is corroborated, and this is all the corroboration. For example, all the documents and that, all the phone records and all the text messages and all that, the way this was tried by Josh Steinglass and Susan Hoffinger and others in that office was just masterful, because they pre-corroborated Michael Cohen so that as he was testifying in a linear chronological way, they could just hand him the things that were already in evidence that corroborated every detail of what he was saying. So it was like words with proof, words with proof, words with proof. It wasn't like disjointed in any way. And that was just such a brilliant way to do it, because he was corroborated the whole way, but he was also corroborated by the words of David Pecker. And David Pecker was the first witness. It was like 5 weeks between when Pecker and Cohen testified. So I'm not surprised that they wanted Pecker's readback of where Pecker corroborated Michael Cohen. And what they wanted was the part of Pecker's testimony where Donald Trump essentially deputized Michael Cohen to be the guy to negotiate with. And that's what Pecker said. So that every time Michael Cohen dealt with David Pecker, and one of the questions was, Trump didn't know. Well, guess what? There's the testimony that says, talk to Michael. Michael is the one who's going to be doing this and arranging that. And I think that really, they wanted to remember that and hear that, because there was so much time between that testimony and Michael Cohen. I'm not surprised they didn't ask to hear about Stormy Daniels, because it didn't matter, right? Stormy Daniels, whether or not they had sex was irrelevant, right? It was clear that they paid her off, and you can't deny that. And so why Todd Blanche spent any time saying that didn't happen in summation? Waste of time. And also he lost all credibility there, because no one in the right mind would believe that Donald Trump is paying $130,000 times 3, because it's grossed up to $420,000. No one believes that he's going to pay that because she's standing next to him at a golf course in a picture. prosecutor. So he lost all credibility with everything he argued, everything he said, and they didn't bother with it in their jury notes, right? In their deliberations. All they needed to deal with was really that piece of it. Once they got it, they saw it, then they went through each and every count and they with care to make sure that burden of, the beyond a reasonable doubt was proven for each of them. And they found it was there for all 34. I mean, it's an absolute resounding affirmation and validation of the prosecution's theory that this was an election interference case, and it's really important. And it happened, and Trump is guilty.
Now you have Donald Trump's lawyer, Todd Blanche, doing his right-wing media tour, his wine fest, WHI, and whining fest on Fox and other networks, saying that this was unfair, that he didn't get that they didn't get a fair trial, complaining and whining over and over again. Karen, I want to say this. You were at my wedding, so you saw me cry during the dance I did with my mom. You were almost people keep making me cry again. So you were very close to getting those tears out of me when you said all of those great things. But it's an honor to co-host this with you. It's an honor to have you on this network. It's an honor to launch the Mistrial show. Everybody make sure you subscribe to Mistrial wherever audio podcasts are available. Just search Mistrial. And then I also want to give a shout out, of course, to the we being also all of you who are watching and listening to this, the Meidas Mighty out there. This is a true community beyond being a network, and our community first approach, what you all have done for me watching this has been I'm just as much of a member of this community as you all are who are watching and listening to this. So thank you for all creating this Meidas Mighty community. And it's great that we can be messengers in this community, but you as messengers are just as important, where you share this knowledge, share the network, let people know the facts, because facts matter. And when we see why Donald Trump so hates courtrooms and our legal system, it's because you don't have Fox. You don't have the right-wing propaganda machine and the lies and the corporate media, both sides, and the hearsay and all of that. You have to deal with reality, and you have to be in an evidence-based world. There was once a time where our fourth estate, the media, actually cared about evidence and facts and presenting it in a certain way. And then they're so focused on the horse race and the both sides-isms or the straight up propaganda that they've lost their way. And we've been able to build this platform together. Karen, I know you wanted to say one last thing before you were going to go, but we have a lot more coverage here on the MeidasTouch Network. Let me pass it to you, Karen.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, you know how when you graduate, you go to graduation, you have the tassel, and then at the time of graduation, you move from one side to another. I feel like we went for all this time, it was convict 45, and now today officially we can move over to convict 45.
Yes.
and by the way, that's at store.MeidasTouch.com. We also, Karen, as you know, our merch was prominently featured as an exhibit in the Trump criminal
what a world.
During the cross-examination of Michael Cohen, our merch was prominently featured, and they were saying, "Isn't this the merch store that you own, Mr. Cohen?" And Michael Cohen was like, "No, that's the MeidasTouch merch store." "But isn't this your mug?" "No, that's MeidasTouch.com. That's the MeidasTouch merch store. That's not what that is." But anyway, you can actually get the exhibit now. I mean, we had it for sale before as well at store.MeidasTouch.com. One more time, that's store.MeidasTouch.com. The Mar-a-Lardo Correctional Facility and the Convict 45, and they send him to the big house.
You search mea culpa to get to the exhibit shirt, the jury exhibit shirt, in case folks are looking for that.
It's amazing.
Yeah, that's how you get that. Oh, we have other big news to report as well. We're going to be having a Zoom meeting, Brett, Jordy, and myself. Don't worry, Karen, we're not going to have you do that. As much as we'd love to have you there. So if you want to meet Brett, Jordy, and myself, if you always want to ask us questions after this live, if you become a member of patreon.com/MeidasTouch, patreon.com/ make sure you spell MeidasTouch right. Sometimes people spell it wrong. MEI, like our last name, MEIDASTOUCH. So go to patreon.com/MeidasTouch. As soon as this live ends, don't worry, we still got a lot more show. There will be a link on the feed at patreon.com/MeidasTouch. It's a Zoom meeting link where you could meet us and ask us questions in an exclusive Zoom meeting. Look, we don't have outside investors here at the MeidasTouch network the same way our competitors do. Like Fox has like $12 billion in revenue and whatever, and our competitors have all these outside investors. We don't. We fund this off of emojis. Interesting business model. Emojis are pro-democracy sponsors, and a big part of it's also our Patreon. So if you want to help with this network's growth, you don't have to, so no pressure. You can always just subscribe to this channel. That's what and share the word. But if you want to help financially and support the growth, go to patreon.com/MeidasTouch. And then also you'll get to meet us after with our monthly Zoom. And it's a great day to do our monthly Zoom. So I can't wait to see everybody there one more time. It's patreon.com/MeidasTouch. And I see so many people also in the store.MeidasTouch.com store right now. So get there quick because I know that a lot of that gear is probably going to sell out. Patreon.com/MeidasTouch. Karen, thank you so much. I'm loving this trial. We've got a lot more show. Let's take a quick break, hear from our pro-democracy sponsors who make this show possible as well. And we'll be right back on this historic day where Donald Trump was convicted on 34 felony counts.
Trade Coffee is changing the way you experience coffee at home. They continuously curate a wide variety of coffees that come from the best small batch specialty roasters in the US, then make personalized recommendations based on what you like or may like to try. Every bag is roasted to order and shipped fresh to you by one of their 50-plus partners. Meidas Mighty, you know I am the resident coffee geek here at MeidasTouch, and I wouldn't put my stamp of approval on just any coffee, but I am always legitimately excited every time I see what Trade Coffee is sending me. From dark roast to decaf, espressos to cold brew and iced coffee, you can discover the best coffee suited to your taste. And with Father's Day and summer birthdays coming up, it's not too early to begin thinking of the perfect gift, and you can't go wrong with better coffee. I took the Trade Coffee quiz, told it exactly what kind of coffee I like. Personally, I prefer light roast with bright, interesting flavors, and I've been blown away by every single bag they've sent me. Last week, they sent me a blend sourced from Colombia. Next week, I see on the website I'm receiving a single origin bag sourced from Kenya. This is as good as it gets, folks, and I never have to worry about running out to the store to get coffee. I always know it's going to be delivered straight to my door. Give Trade a try for a month and see how you can make better coffee at home. Right now, they're offering 30% off your first month of coffee when you visit drinktrade.com/Meidas. That's drinktrade.com/MEIDAS for 30% off a month of coffee. drinktrade.com/Meidas.
How much do you think you're paying in subscriptions every month? The answer is probably more than you think. Over 74% of people have subscriptions they've forgotten about. I definitely did, like the time I forgot that I subscribed to you-know-what streaming service. But thanks to Rocket Money, I'm no longer wasting money on the ones I forgot about, okay? Rocket Money, it's a personal finance app that finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bill so that you can grow your savings. With Rocket Money, I have full control over my subscriptions and a clear view of my expenses. I can see all the subscriptions in one place, and if I see something I don't want, bam, Rocket Money can help me cancel it with just a few taps. I love how the dashboard for Rocket Money shows how this month's spending habits are compared to last month, so I can clearly see my spending habits. Plus, they'll help me create a custom budget and keep my spending on track. Rocket Money will even try to negotiate lower bills for you by up to 20%. All you have to do is submit a picture of your bill, and Rocket Money takes care of the rest. They'll deal with customer service for you. How good is that? Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved over a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's features. So stop wasting money on things you don't use. Cancel cancel your unwanted subscriptions by going to rocketmoney.com/MeidasTouch. That's rocketmoney.com/MeidasTouch, rocketmoney.com/MeidasTouch. One more time, rocketmoney.com/MeidasTouch. Check it out. Hey, why didn't you tell me to get a haircut, everybody? I mean, I'm watching that Rocket Money read, and I think there should have been a little bit more peer pressure.
I think
from
to
Meidas
Karen's
Meidas.
point of authenticity, Ben, people they appreciate that you could get out of bed and the first thing you do in the morning, boom, hot take, pro-democracy sponsor ad read, hot take, live stream. So they're just it's okay if your hair is a little bit messy and your beard's a little bit long, you're a little bit disheveled. All right, we're not going to turn this into a roast. Benji, amazing ad reads, Brett, amazing reads. Love the sponsors. Links are in the description of the audio and the YouTube. Click them, use our code, let them know we sent you. It really does help the show, and they're fantastic products that we vet for y'all. And so with that, Ben, Brett, what a night.
Let's take a look at the Alvin Bragg press conference from following the verdict. There was really three main points that Alvin Bragg talked about. He said, look, we're going to speak through our filings here. You know, this isn't like the Trump MAGA show. By the way, Trump and MAGA are out there on Fox right now saying things that would probably make Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un blush. Like, they're out there right now saying just some of the most deranged, overtly fascist, crazy things right now. And we'll try to bring you some of those. Although I want to focus less on that right now. I want to focus on what District Attorney Alvin Bragg said, and maybe in a little bit, I want to talk about the types of things that President Biden said as well in Pennsylvania, in the Commonwealth, because I think we shouldn't forget that there's a normal guy in the White House who's doing a pretty good job actually doing things that, like, it's a good point, right? That, like, while you've got one guy convicted on 34 felony counts for making hush money payments and falsifying business records regarding a porn star who he was cheating on with while his wife was pregnant. There's like a loving man in the White House who's like very compassionate and like pretty freaking normal, who like put legislation together to like do like 40,000 infrastructure projects, and who's like done things to protect and preserve Social Security, to lower healthcare costs. Who's
here's something that happened today, for example, and this probably definitely got lost in all of the news. I'm sure a lot of people haven't heard this just yet, but the Treasury and the IRS announced something massive today, that direct file, the government system of filing your taxes, is here to stay. So they're offering this to all 50 states. They did a trial run with it this tax period for people to file their taxes without having to pay a penny to file your taxes, without having to do any of this complicated kind of TurboTax stuff. And, you know, this is a direct file, permanent, free option, saving taxpayers time and money. That's just like a very kind of basic governmental thing, making it easier for you to pay your taxes, saving you money, saving you time, making the process easier. That's something that President Biden implemented today while all this was going on, for example.
Over 1 million PACT Act claims processed of veterans who were exposed to things like burn pits, who would not otherwise have gotten health care, are getting life-saving health care they would have otherwise been deprived of because of President Biden's policies. 40,000 plus infrastructure projects that are going up across the country that MAGA Republicans who are attacking the rule of law are trying to take credit for when they voted against the infrastructure project. So when President Biden goes to Pennsylvania, when he speaks in the Commonwealth, he has a lot of things to actually talk about that he's accomplished, bringing the semiconductor industry back. If someone just did one of those things, it would be a historic administration. But I just want to remind people, we'll talk more about the craziness of the felonies and the convictions of Trump and all of this stuff. But like, I always want to remind people that what government should be about is we the people. Law and order is critical. It is critical that Donald Trump be held accountable. But I want to make sure that we the people, I want to make sure that you watching this and your families and your communities are a priority. With Donald Trump, the priority is only one thing: Donald Trump. That's it. even above his children. During the criminal trial, one of the things that Donald Trump's lawyers argued in their closing argument is, why didn't the prosecution call Donald Trump's kids? Trump paraded his kids into the criminal trial to have his criminal defense lawyer throw the kids under the bus at his own criminal defense trial and argue that the prosecution should have called Eric and Don Jr. because their names appeared in the documents. Trump cares about Trump, and he will lie, cheat, steal, and commit crimes and overthrow our democracy if it benefits him. And he's exploited this oligarchical instinct of millionaires and decamillionaires and billionaires here, a corporate media that's owned by billionaires and decamillionaires who want tax cuts over democracy, who both sides crap or just become outright propagandists. And that's why, in addition to the verdict of guilty, 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 I won't do it all again the 34 times, I think this criminal trial also has a verdict against corporate media. And that verdict is an F. Y'all failed. Looking at you, corporate media, F. Failure. Because y'all tried to push the same narratives that you push over and over again with the polls, with the red wave. You tried to red wave us. It's like red pill, right? You tried to like red wave us in the criminal trial and say, oh my God, the case fell apart. Michael Cohen, this was the worst. This was the worst thing ever. Why'd the prosecution even bring this case in the first place? It's all over. I mean, if you watch that coverage, you would have been convinced that Donald Trump was going to be acquitted. And then I'm like, look, I don't know what the outcome's going to be. And I'm not trying to spread hopium here. I'm like, and I hope y'all oh, Ben, what are you talking about? I'm like, the corporate media is making this up, and I'm not trying to be like a crazy person on YouTube ranting. They're lying to you. They're liars, and I don't want to be someone who just gets on here and just whines. They're lying, but they were. And we had so many sources in the courtroom saying, hey, Ben, that's not what's happening. That didn't happen the way they said it.
It was so weird.
But over and over again, that was the narrative they pushed. I said I was going to talk about the prosecutor's press.
Ben, they were bringing on Avenatti as a character witness, the corporate media. What's going on?
It was urgent. And honestly, I would get called. I got multiple calls and texts from family, friends after days of court where they'd say, I heard it went really bad for Michael Cohen today. It's over, huh? This is and I was like, huh? Where'd you get? What are you talking about? I've been covering this all day. Well, CNN said that there was this big moment. I was like, but that's not what this isn't what happened. It was so weird. It's so weird. And they're going to shift kind of right to, it's weird. And they're going to shift now to and now let's tell you how this is amazing for Donald Trump. And look at all these donations. And it's going to be their next
Let's go to the
move.
diner and find the MAGA person that says that now they're dead. I wasn't going to vote for Trump, but now that he's convicted, look, it's changed their minds. It's exactly where they're going to go.
I mean, look, while all of this was going on, right, they were in Donald Trump's rally in Wildwood, New Jersey during the criminal trial, there was 100,000 people there. And we're all okay, the entire venue, the location only holds 20,000. It's less than half full. Why are you reporting, oh, Donald Trump's people told you that? Donald Trump, now the convicted felon. Previously, the Trump organization was and still is a convicted felon. Trump was found liable
for fraud, for lying.
For lying and making up numbers. You're going to take his numbers when just objectively the venue doesn't hold even 20,000. You're going to go with the number that's 4 times that, or a few weeks before, after Biden's fundraiser, the Trump campaign said, we raised $50 million. And then the media reports that, or at Donald Trump's Bronx speech, they go, there was 25,000 people when there was less than 3,000 people there, and lots of people left during the middle of it. I don't know, media. Maybe the story with the Bronx speech should have been that Donald Trump called up people on stage who were recently indicted in a 140 count criminal indictment for allegedly being leaders of the crypt gang or the Crips gang in New York who allegedly killed someone and engaged in 12 attempted murders that they're being charged with. And Donald Trump's attempt to get the black vote was bringing these individuals on the stage and saying, ha, 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 I love your grill. You're going to give me a MAGA grill? I mean, like, what are we talking about? Donald Trump goes to a Chick-fil-A and he sets up these like ridiculous fake stunts with people who work at the Republican Party. And I have to listen to the media go, it looks like Donald Trump has a lot of black support because a woman gave him a hug in a Chick-fil-A. It's like, do y'all realize, one, how incredibly racist that is to begin with? And number two, how utterly ridiculous it is? Or I don't know, how about Donald Trump just going on stage and talking about the late great Hannibal Lecter, or the just fictional murderers that he calls the late great who eat people? Like, what in the world? Or as someone just put in the chat, they go, well, sure, but Biden hardly ever goes a bing bing bong swish swish bing bong. Like Donald Trump's up there on stage, go a swishy swishy bing bong swish, and I'm watching, and Brett, it's like the trial coverage, the poke, all this crap. I'm watching it, and I'm like, are y'all seeing this? Like,
It's so
I
it's
can't
so
be.
weird.
I
Well,
can't
Ben,
be
the
only-
good here's the good news about it. I think this opened up a lot of people's eyes. I think this process opened up a lot of people's eyes to this gaslighting that we endure every single day. Oh, and this is big news, folks. This is just breaking. We got a statement from Melania Trump. Let's pull this up right here. Oh no, there's no statement from Melania Trump. It's a blank for the listeners.
I was
It's a
like,
blank.
I didn't see anything.
Melania Trump, who showed up for
that. Oh, that's awesome.
I saw the look on your face like, no way. We got
That's good. That's
yeah.
good.
Well, Melania, who showed up 0 times, and we were talking about this the other day. Everyone in the comments is like, "Wow, I just got trolled so hard." So it's like the new Rickroll. Yeah, it's
Our brains, we must be brothers or something, because like everything you're saying right now, I'm just in my head right before.
That's so funny. So what I was going to say is, Donald Trump also did everything possible to kind of lose the case. Like, I'm not saying he did this purposely, but it reminds me of going back to the E. Jean Carroll cases, going back to the other cases before a jury where Donald Trump behaved so just like disgusting in front of the jury, like sleeping, mouth drooping, like not looking at them, like just being like a horrific person, bringing in day after day these MAGA Republicans, the red tie brigade, to try to intimidate people, bringing in his like weird adult kids. Like none of that possibly could have played well. And he was clearly also dictating this bizarre legal strategy that his lawyers employed, where they could have probably put on a good defense, quite frankly, if they actually like wanted to be good lawyers. But instead they followed the advice of Donald Trump and put people on the stand like Robert Costello and things like that. I mean, the whole thing it's just absolutely just bizarre to watch. And so, when we heard that this verdict was in and it was earlier than folks expected, I have to think somewhere that added to it, right? If you saw a sympathetic character sitting there in that courtroom in Donald Trump, somebody who looked remorseful, somebody who maybe even took the stand in their defense. And I know that's probably not normal in most of these cases and probably not a good idea for most people in these cases. But Donald Trump actually, it might have been good for him to take the stand if he could control himself, if he was a normal human being. But he's not. He would have made it horrific if he did that. And his behavior alone, I think, spoke volumes and maybe even said more than anything he could have said on the stand, the way that he was there. Now, I want to go to some of these Alvin Bragg clips because we've been promising that we'd show a bit of Alvin Bragg for the past 20 minutes or so. And so first, let's show Alvin Bragg, the Manhattan DA, after his successful prosecution of Donald Trump, speaking about the work of the everyday jurors who were the ones who made the decision to convict.
The 12 everyday jurors vowed to make a decision based on the evidence and the law, and the evidence and the law alone. Their deliberations led them to a unanimous conclusion beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant, Donald J. Trump, is guilty of 34 counts of falsifying business records in the first degree, to conceal a scheme to corrupt the 2016 election. And while this defendant may be unlike any other in American history, we arrived at this trial and ultimately today at this verdict in the same manner as every other case that comes through the courtroom doors, by following the facts and the law and doing so without fear or favor.
Alvin Bragg, the first to indict Donald Trump, the first to secure a conviction against Donald Trump. And I remember how many people were so angry at Alvin Bragg in the beginning of this. I remember when Karen interviewed Alvin Bragg on this very network. And I got to say, some of your comments were not the nicest towards our guest, Alvin Bragg. But
no one here, let's be clear.
Nobody in this room. That's for sure.
But it's
but
sort
anyway,
of the narrative that corporate media was bringing on early on.
It's such a good point, Jordy.
And once we're able to just show the data and the facts, of course, that interview aged well, not to pat us on the back here, but to show us collective as the entire network and the Meidas Mighty who are watching just believe in the truth and democracy, and they just want the facts and the data and are sick of being gaslit.
Jordy,
I want to show now.
It's such a good point. It's Jordy. It's such a good point that
rather
than, I think it's important we understand some of the root causes, which is data driven. And I think a lot of people were watching the narratives that were being fed on other networks that are potentially on cable. And they were saying all of these, and these are supposedly trusted news sources who are saying all of these things about Alvin Bragg. So people are reading them and then they feel a certain way. So when Alvin Bragg was on our network, and this was way before criminal charges were even filed, and Karen was just having like an interview about the processes and procedures of the office, you would have thought that the interview was with Ted Cruz. Like, I mean, honestly, like the comments were, I'm not even exaggerating.
They were like, lock him up, throw Alvin Bragg in jail. Like they were that level. Like, this guy's, was he paid off? He's a criminal.
With Jack Smith being announced, we brought Karen on here who worked with Jack Smith. Knowledge is power. And there's so many people out there who are so predatory with knowledge and manipulating it and doing things for their own agenda. And it's so important that we all break through that. And Brett, that's why I think, and Jordy, that this verdict, I really hope opens up some people's eyes to the level and layer of the media that's been out there, not just the right-wing propaganda, because they're going deep in. Like it's such a sad, like you see Alvin Bragg up there saying, look, this is what we do every day. And we actually went about this trial no different than we'd go about any trial, which is true. Yes, it was more high profile, but in terms of how evidence is presented, going through the motions, that's the process and procedure about how you try criminal cases. Falsification of business records cases are tried in Manhattan. Most people don't take it to trial the way Trump did. There's usually earlier guilty pleas when you have all of the documents against you, but this occurs. This is a crime. Crimes get prosecuted. No one is above the law. That used to be what the Republicans used to be, like law and order. Now they're defund the people who they don't like, defund them all, defund the FBI, get rid of law and order, and let's just have a dictator.
You have J.D. Vance right now, and I'm not going to play the clip, but you have J.D. Vance, a sitting Republican senator, calling now saying, we need to subpoena Judge Merchan. We need to subpoena Judge Merchan's daughter. They want to harass the judge and harass the judge's daughter, because Donald Trump was convicted of crimes that 12 jurors decided on unanimously that he committed.
Merchan's the new family in the MAGA world right now. That's who they're all turning their eyes on. I mean, they're unbelievably just disloyal people to the country. I mean, Ben, in your entire life, could you imagine that we'd be seeing this from the Republican Party?
Never. I mean, you had the criminal trial taking place, but then Donald Trump bust in these MAGA Republicans who he dressed up. Like he
They're
dressed
pledge
up
outfits.
these people in these long red ties to look like him, these MAGA Republicans, and they were wearing ties with Donald Trump's face on it. The Speaker of the House of Representatives, MAGA Mike Johnson, shows up and to the trial, and he's like, I support I live my life by the Bible. So what do you think about hush money payments to porn? I'm not going to get into it, but the judge's daughter, let's talk about the judge's daughter. The judge's daughter? Like, what are you talking about? Justice Merchan is a respected judge, but they've showed us who they are. And there is this part of America that wants to turn America into Vladimir Putin's Russia. Like, that's what they want. And then they accuse the others of doing it. But these people are for authoritarianism. They're for a Trump dictatorship. It is so utterly strange to just to watch it. It's so utterly dangerous. By the way, I'm so excited. I see that there's been so many people over the past hour who have joined patreon.com/MeidasTouch, because as soon as this show ends, and we still have another segment on the show, but as soon as the show ends, if you become a member of patreon.com/MeidasTouch, we're going to have an exclusive Zoom meeting tonight where you get to meet Jordy, Brett, and me. You can ask us questions during the Zoom meeting, and we'll have this exclusive Zoom meeting where we can talk about whatever topic. There's no topic that's off limits, so feel free to ask us any questions, and we'll do our best to answer as many of the questions as we can. Also, we don't have outside investors, so think about it like this. The MeidasTouch network outperformed every other corporate media network on digital. And you've got Fox that's got like $12 billion in revenue, MSNBC I won't name check them. Lots of other networks that have billions of dollars in revenue, and billionaires and decamillionaires and CNN. I said I'm not going to name check them all. That have these millionaires and billionaires who fund them, and we're funded by pro-democracy sponsors, emojis, and by patreon.com. The emojis you can buy by clicking the $ on the YouTube thing, which is different though and then our Patreon. So it is a big way to help grow this platform. And you've seen our editorial staff grow. Like, you can see the cause and effect of your support. The shows that we've been launching, the new hosts and correspondents that we have, all of that, patreon.com/MeidasTouch, just the way you spell it, patreon.com/MEIDASTOUCH. So let's go to our last ad break from our pro-democracy sponsors. Look, our pro-democracy sponsors play a major part as well in helping fund this network. And so we're grateful for their support. Let's go to this ad break, Jordy, afterwards, talk a bit about them. And then I want to share not just about Trump's criminal trial. I do want to talk about President Biden's speech as well, though, in Pennsylvania. So let's go to our last ad break of the show. As you may know,
my old laundry detergent used to come in these big plastic jugs, and it never lived up to the hype. I know you know what I'm talking about. The laundry wouldn't come out as fresh as it was supposed to, and that became so frustrating. This podcast is sponsored by Laundry Sauce. Laundry Sauce created the world's best-smelling laundry detergent in simple-to-use, high-performance pods. Laundry Sauce has transformed the mundane task of doing laundry into a luxurious and exciting experience, so you don't have to dread laundry day anymore. Earlier this week, I just used the Egyptian rose pods, and my clothes smell amazing. So what's the secret behind Laundry Sauce? Well, they partnered with one of the top fragrance houses in the world, the same team behind many of your favorite designer scents. From Australian sandalwood to Egyptian rose to cyber pine, with Laundry Sauce, laundry day will never smell the same again. Plus, they stripped away all the unnecessary ingredients and artificial dyes and maximized the hardworking science-backed stain fighters and enzymes to ensure your favorite clothes come out looking brand new. I went from dreading doing laundry to legitimately being excited to do laundry because I know my clothes will come out smelling amazing. I love Laundry Sauce so much. My favorite scent is that Egyptian rose I mentioned earlier. It's sort of like a rose mixed with some warm nutmeg and clover spice. It's amazing. And I'm not going to lie, my whole house kind of smells like laundry sauce now, but I'm not complaining. And I know it's just me. Check out the reviews on their site. They're some of the funniest reviews you will ever read and are super authentic. They match my own experience exactly. Plus, it's not just the pods that they sell. Laundry sauce makes scent boosters, dryer sheets, dryer balls, fabric softeners, and even candles too. Plus, if you aren't happy, send back laundry sauce for a full refund. No questions asked. Elevate your laundry with laundry sauce. Now is the time to experience laundry sauce. Head to laundrysauce.com/Meidas and use promo code Meidas at checkout for 15% off. That's the best offer you'll find, but you must use our code Meidas. That's MEIDAS for 15% off your order. One last time, that's laundrysauce.com/Meidas, promo code Meidas, MEIDAS for 15% off.
As you may know, I recently got married, and my two dogs, Taquito, a Maltese, and Chaquito, a toy poodle, were with me every step of the way. And they were there with me on that special day. And in fact, they're always there with me. I'm a dog parent who loves to spoil my dogs. And when it comes to what I feed my dogs, I gotta feed them the best. And for me, that's why I feed them Nom Nom. Nom Nom is here for dog parents who know it's essential to keep mealtime exciting. Nom Nom's vet-developed meals burst with balanced nutrients dogs need. I can tell you that my dogs love and have tantalizing tastes and textures that they crave to add delight to their day. And as you know, it's hard to find food sometimes that your dogs truly, truly love. So Nom Nom is now available at chewy.com, CHEWY.com, and your local PetSmart stores, or you can get 50% off your no-risk trial box by going to trynom.com/Meidas. That's try, TRYNOM.com/Meidas, MEIDAS, and get that 50% off your first subscription order. Thank you, Nom.
Shout out to our pro-democracy sponsors, y'all. Laundry sauce is super cool because laundry sauce came as a recommendation of somebody in the Meidas Mighty who was like, yo, I've heard laundry sauce on other podcasts. I use their stuff. I want to use Meidas as my promo code. Can you get them as a sponsor? Reached out and boom, did it. Definitely check out laundry sauce, and Nom Nom is just fabulous. I mean, they've been a sponsor with us for a minute now. And so show them, if you guys have doggos of your own, that y'all care about this show and pro-democracy network, that is the MeidasTouch network. Use our code. The links are in the description of the audio and the YouTube. Let them know we sent you. It really helps the show. And again, they are fantastic products for y'all.
You see Taquito and Chaquito?
So cute. I was there when we took those photos. So that's how you know that's a brand new read too. That's a beautiful photo of your pups, Ben.
That's a fresh read right there. And check out all of the sponsors. You'll see the discount codes in the description below. So check that out. And you know, they're great products. I mean, those are like some great products. And it helps support the show as well. And you could just tell them too that MeidasTouch sent you. You could do that by using the discount codes. All right, we've spoken a lot about Trump, loser, convicted felon.
You know what I love about the conviction? That the Convict 45 gear that we have now has taken on an entirely new meaning. It's now, instead of Convict 45, it's now Convict 45. So I mean, it's great. That's what we call
multi-use.
Future-proofing the merch right there.
I mean, also, if the verdict turned out differently, it would have been, you know, we now the fact that it was an exhibit and Trump was convicted, it could have had negative implications on the merch. I'm just going to say if those became an exhibit in the trial.
Yeah. I did. It was so bizarre seeing your name mentioned in the trial. By Cohen and asked about by the attorneys, and seeing the MeidasTouch network mentioned in the trial transcripts themselves.
I never thought that I would be a trial exhibit, or we would have merch that was a trial exhibit in the first ever
That's
felony.
why it made it personal to me, them bringing us up. I'm like, all right, now it's personal. Now
It's our merch store.
yeah.
It's
now,
our merch.
now
That's
it's
all the
now it's
framing too from, and again, from corporate media, they just ran with it. They're like, can you believe that Michael Cohen is selling this merchandise on his website? I was like, what are you talking? Do like just a 3-second Google. Just go to Wikipedia for 2 seconds.
it's
What are
so
you doing?
insane.
Yeah,
Made it
Cohen isn't
personal.
selling it. We're the ones selling diaper
Yeah.
down gear. That's
Yeah.
me.
Yeah, exactly.
That's my
No,
legacy.
you can give Cohen credit for being a key witness. I want credit for store.my.
You guys know how many
I want
times
credit
I had
for
to
breaking
record
the
the
news.
lock
By the
him
way,
up to
yeah.
get that tone right. I do
What do you
do
do?
that a lot. Do you know how many times I had to do the lock him up to get that like tone right, to get
Yeah,
that
you
voice?
nailed it.
A lot
Nailed
of
it, Jay.
times.
A lot of rehearsals.
I think
get
this
it right,
verdict
guys.
also
Just get it right.
conclusively demonstrated. Let me be clear. I think this verdict also conclusively demonstrated that my reporting when I broke the news that when Donald Trump was falling asleep, he was farting on his lawyers is 100% accurate. For those who doubted that reporting, let me be very clear. It was one of the most well-sourced reporting that was out there as well. From people we had in the courtroom who were saying,
Yeah,
that
I took personal offense to this as well, because I had some people in the media when I was talking to them, I was like, and they would bring up somebody was talking about, and I said, we like that was our story. Like our sources were the ones who informed us about that. We confirmed it with multiple other people who we know in the court, and they were like, I heard you made that up. And once again, I was like, based on what? Why would we do that? Like, that's not what we do here. Like, they're always looking for something, and it always been what was that? It always backfires.
And they're always looking, and then they're like, tell us your sources, or it didn't happen. I'm like, okay, if I tell you my sources,
I'm like, I'm gonna do that for all your stories. All right, let's see
Yeah.
how you react.
Exactly. Every one of your story where you have sources, I want to know who they are, or else I'm saying it's not a real story. Like, we know that Donald Trump does it. We know that it was putrid. We know that he's stinky. We know what was going on in the courtroom. Y'all were not fearless enough to report on it, and we scooped you. We scooped you. We got
fearless.
You're not fearless. I would say that was fearless journalism. You wouldn't say we were fearless. We went right to anyway. Let's go talk.
That was the first word that came to my mind. That's all I'm saying.
Fearless. They're like, how would you describe your reporting? I would say fearless would be number one. By the way, if you want to ask me on Patreon, if you're thinking about joining patreon.com/MeidasTouch and you want to ask me about that reporting, feel free. That's one of the questions you could ask me. All right. So President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris got a rock star welcome in Pennsylvania. I want to share with you what that welcome looked like, and then let's talk a little bit about what they said. Let's play this clip.
1 million people on their feet cheering for President Biden. And no, that's what MAGA would. That's what the MAGA math. But in all seriousness, that was an enthusiastic crowd. The screams did kind of sound like screams that you hear like the Beatles at Shea Stadium when you listen back to that footage. That was President Biden and Kamala Harris. They were in Philadelphia on Wednesday, and that was a big event that they had. They were launching a new initiative called Black Voters for Biden-Harris, and I found the speech incredibly inspiring, and I hope that folks are now starting to tune into events like this, and I hope that President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris are going to do more of this across the country, and I hope the media starts running and picking up a lot of these, clips or playing a lot of these rallies live, because this is the stuff that folks really need to be seeing. The Trump stuff, of course, is important, and we cover that obviously a whole lot, but it's important that we also take time to focus on what the Biden campaign is doing, what their messaging is like, how people are reacting to it, what states they're going into, what is their operation, how many field offices are they opening, and really making that contrast between between them and what Donald Trump is promising in an authoritarian state, is what Donald Trump wants, to just completely obliterate the government that we have and replace it with a fascist government and truly lay out the stakes for the American people. But the cheers did not stop there. Here were folks chanting 4 more years for President Biden once he got up there.
Hello, Philadelphia. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It's good. It's good to be. It's good to be almost home. I just live down the road a little bit.
Scranton Joe showing his Pennsylvania street cred. I thought this was a particularly poignant moment for President Biden on the stage there in Philadelphia. He was basically saying, what do you think that Donald Trump's response would have been if there was a January type situation that was led by Black Americans? And I think this point that he made was incredibly powerful. I'll play it.
He calls insurrectionists who stormed the Capitol patriots. Patriots. If reelected, he wants to pardon, quote, every one of them. Let me ask you, what do you think he would have done on January 6th if Black Americans had stormed it? Think about this. What do you think would have happened if Black Americans had stormed the Capitol? I don't think he'd be talking about pardons. It's the same guy who wanted to tear gas you as you peacefully protested George Floyd's murder. The same guy who still calls the Central Park Five guilty, even though they were exonerated. He's that landlord who denies housing applications because of the color of your skin. He's that guy who won't say Black Lives Matter and invokes neo-Nazi Third Reich terms. We all remember Trump is the same guy who unleashed birthism, the birthism lie against Barack. And then Trump tells you he's the greatest president. I love this one. He says he's the greatest president for Black people in the history of America, including more than Abraham Lincoln. I mean, can you fathom that? Where in the hell? Like I said, I think he injected too much of that bleach in his brain. I think it affected his brain.
I think it's important that folks get reminded of this history of Donald Trump, because I feel like too many people, we have short attention spans, right? And I get it. There's a lot going on in the world, but there's so much about this man, even looking past this conviction today, that is so deplorable, to use a word, that is so abhorrent, that it's important that we remind folks of these various things that Donald Trump has done in the past. Biden also hit on, Ben, those stereotypes that you were speaking about earlier. He mentioned, Donald Trump in his own way talked about Donald Trump trying to peddle these stereotypes to win over voters with, Donald Trump selling sneakers, Donald Trump going into Chick-fil-A's and saying, look, Black voters love me, and showing his mugshot and saying, look, Black voters love my mugshot. All these things which are so incredibly offensive. And you had President Biden highlighting things like that. You also had President Biden highlighting the fact that Donald Trump is a loser, and that Donald Trump is pretty deranged, that Donald Trump he's snapped, he's unhinged. Here's President Biden making that point on Wednesday in Philadelphia.
The threat that Trump poses is greater in his second term than his first. It's clear that when he lost in 2020, something literally snapped in this guy. No, I'm serious. That's why January 6th happened, when he unleashed an insurrection. Now he's running again, and he's clearly unhinged.
President Biden also speaking about the contrast between him and Donald Trump and rebutting the MAGA lies. You have Donald Trump constantly touting this, that he had the lowest Black unemployment during his presidency. In fact, the lowest Black unemployment occurred under President Biden's presidency. And President Biden reminded voters of just
Trump continues to lie by saying black unemployment was at a record low on his watch. The fact is, record low unemployment happened on my watch, and we're going to keep it going.
And then moving to policy and things that President Biden has done, President Biden spoke about his initiatives to make sure that no person is jailed for simple marijuana possession, for using marijuana, reminding voters of actual accomplishments that he's done.
Promise made and the promise kept. I'm keeping my promises that no one should be in jail merely for using and possessing marijuana. I pardoned thousands of people incarcerated for mere possession of marijuana. Thousands. A promise made and a promise kept, and for the record should be expunged as well, I might add.
President Biden talking about the proliferation of MAGA lies and rebutting those MAGA lies.
Now let's talk about Trump's MAGA lies. I don't have an hour, but we'll get us ordinary. Trump takes credit for sending all the pandemic relief checks alone. It's a lie. The truth is, the Congressional Black Caucus got that money passed.
President Biden reminding Donald Trump that he is a loser, and with the help of those in the audience there, that they can make him a loser once again.
Because you voted, Donald Trump is defeated, former president. And with your vote in 2024, we're going to make Donald Trump a loser again.
And then folks in Philadelphia were really excited also to see Vice President Kamala Harris. Vice President Kamala Harris also made the case and touted the administration's accomplishments. And I thought this was an important point to make regarding medical debt and people's credit scores. Once again, like things that actually affect everyday people. I think it's important to remind folks of those sorts of things.
We also took on the issue of debt, which makes so many people feel like they can never get ahead. Take, for example, medical debt. We are now making it so medical debt can no longer be included on your credit score. So that medical debt cannot impact a person's ability to get a car loan, an apartment lease, or a home loan.
It's just such a contrast when you hear President Biden and Vice President Harris speak. And, I've talked about this a lot, that our show is often whiplash, right? Because we try to show the contrast, and the reality of what's going on, right? We're not just cherry picking moments. Like Donald Trump goes out there every day when he does these events or rallies, or he goes on these talk shows and says the most insane crap and has the most dangerous promises for what he wants to do to this country. He says it out loud. He says the kind of things at his rallies and events and on Fox and on Newsmax and on propaganda radio and stuff, where if you saw this in an email that somebody sent from the Trump campaign, people would view it as like the biggest scandal ever, like everything Donald Trump says. But because Donald Trump just blurts it out in his rallies at his stream of consciousness every time and says the most offensive things imaginable, for some reason, it's just like, oh, this is Trump. Trump. And then you get the total ignore of President Biden and Vice President Harris actually presenting coherent policies and all the things that they've actually done, in the face, by the way, of just complete opposition, in the face of these Republicans trying everything imaginable to try to stop them, including investigating him and his family and all of these various things based on absolutely nothing other than this idea of revenge, and to try to make it seem like you have Donald Trump and Joe Biden as equal people when they are so not in any way. There is no comparison between these two, and the stakes have never been higher. And that's why, while I love to celebrate today, and I'm happy once again. I'm happy to celebrate this verdict and celebrate justice prevailing today. And I think it's important to take moments to celebrate. There's a lot of hard times. It's good to celebrate, but I think it's important to note that we're just getting started here, right? This is just the beginning, and we are still, at the starting line of this race, if you want to, put it in those terms, heading down to this November, and it's not going to end in November either. We're going to have to stay in this fight constantly and constantly be pushing back against these lies, no matter where they're from. whether they're from Republicans, whether they're from Democrats, whether they're from the media. We need to constantly be pushing back on these lies and making sure, as we say, as our slogan says, that truth is golden and that truth prevails. That's what I want to be our North Star here at this network. And with your help, Meidas Mighty, with all of you, that is our commitment to you. And we will honor that commitment every single day.
You know, today is a day of accountability for Donald Trump, a day that law and order prevailed, a day where justice was served. And I also hope that today was also a day that's a shifting of the old guard of corporate media into the new guard of digital media and independent media like this. I mean, this was the most watched destination on all of YouTube, on all of digital media covering the Trump trial. And we were here with you all, with this incredible community when the verdicts were read. We've been with each other every step of the way. And I think it is important that we, the people, stand for law and order, and we, the people, stand for truth. And that includes truth in our media. And with all of the corporate narratives that they tried to push during this trial, the verdict's out against the media too, and they failed miserably in reporting on this corporate trial. And ultimately, I hope what we showed this community, though, is, and I hope we also taught corporate media a lesson also too, and how you should focus on these things and what you need to focus on, the evidence and the data, and not try to make this some sporting event or horse race, but actually talk about what's happening. What a novel concept. And that will always be our commitment to you, the Meidas Mighty, and none of this is possible without you. So make sure you sign up now for patreon.com/MeidasTouch so you can be a part of this Zoom chat with us. That's going to start.
It's about to be a party in the Zoom chat. I'm excited to join everybody.
I see so many people signing up, so it's going to be a big Zoom chat. patreon.com/MeidasTouch. One more time. You can write it down and sign up right after, or sign up now. patreon.com/MeidasTouch. That's patreon.com/MeidasTouch. So sign up now, and then you'll see in the feed when you join the secret link to get into the Zoom meeting with us. And look, the best way you can help out is just by subscribing to this network. It's free. And just tell one or two people. As soon as this ends, share this network with someone who you haven't shared it with before. That's the best way you can help. If you can do it to 10 people, 20 people, 50 people, fine. But just one person is all we ask. That's the main request. We try to come up with interesting ways to kind of grow this network because, again, we're certainly out fundraised, I guess, by legacy and corporate media, who's got, you know, billions of dollars at their disposal, and billionaires and decamillionaires. But that also means that their agenda is a little, you know, is dictated by that as well. And so here we don't have that. So go to patreon.com/MeidasTouch, and we just try to come up with fun ways. So one way is our patreon.com/MeidasTouch. The other way is the emojis. So if you hit that sign in the YouTube, if you see YouTube, there's like a $sign. You hit that. It's like really easy to do to become a member. And then you can gift memberships to people. So if you're already a member, you can buy people memberships, and that's pretty cool, who aren't members. So you could spread the memberships to other people. Also, we've got store.MeidasTouch.com, which has been popping. Do I sound cool? It's been popping all.
You always sound big, bro.
So cool.
That's
definitely what the kids are saying.
Shirts. You can get the Send Him to the Big House, Not the White House. And of course, you can get the famous exhibit now from the Trump criminal trial right there. That's going to become like a historical symbol right there. The Mea Culpa podcast. So get it before we run out. The Mar-a-Lardo Correctional Facility shirt, or shall I say, exhibit number 200 no, whatever it was at the criminal trial, where Cohen was cross-examined on that. All right, give me 2 minutes, give me 5 minutes before we load the Zoom, because I want the doggies want to go outside quickly. But then I'll see everybody at patreon.com/MeidasTouch for that. Look, Meidas Mighty, thank you so much to all of our co-hosts, contributors, to our editors, our producers, everybody behind the scenes who make this network possible. Thank you. And to all the Meidas Mighty out there, thank you. We still have a lot of work to do. This is just the beginning. This is generational, what we have to build together. We got to replace the disinformation chambers with truthful sources of news. And that's what we're trying to build. It's a short-term and a long-term plan. We're in it together, and none of this is possible without you. So thank you. Historic day. Donald Trump convicted on 34 felony counts. Jordy, take it away.
Shout out to the Meidas Mighty!
The Meidas Mighty standing strong against the fascists. We sing our song. We will get it right whenever.
It's Ken Harbaugh with the MeidasTouch Network. The film Against All Enemies, which I co-produced with Ben Meiselas and this network, has won awards around the world for its up-close portrayal of America's insurrectionist movement. It premieres in the U.S. on March 29th on Amazon and Apple TV. Go to againstallenemiesfilm.com or click the link below. But don't just watch Against All Enemies. Tell your friends about it. It's one more way to hold accountable those who threaten our democracy. Thanks, Meidas Mighty. Let's use our power well.
Enough! Send it to the big house, not the White House. Get the new exclusive tees, mugs, and stickers right now at store.meidastouch.com. That's store.meidastouch.com.